This is your Mind on AI. This is the live stream portion of our show. So we're going to do a little deep dive into the actual build components of the Nitwyt operating system. I'm going to give you a little bit of snapshot of what I got going on. Let me go ahead, since this is behind the scenes, I'm going to quickly jump on and share what I've got. So give me just a second, and I'll get my screen all ready. And then I will share with you what we currently have in terms of what Nitwyt OS is. And we will also, with any luck, be able to make some adjustments along the way. We'll see, fingers crossed. All right, so let me go ahead and pop on here. I'm just going to join this. Okay. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. All right, here's our window. At this point, we should now officially have me picture to picture at this point. Yes, excellent. Okay. So now you can see Nitwyt OS, kind of side-by-side comparison there. So I'm just gonna make it a little bigger, but you can kind of see everything that's there. This is the factory itself, kind of how we're organized, or how it's currently being organized. So I've got the input, so we can kind of do the Ask Nitwyt input. I've changed that a little bit from where it was yesterday. So you're gonna see that change just a little bit. Also, one very important thing, just as a technique. So what I did is, my wife and I are basically co-founders of this company. And we're operating this everything around Nitwyt and Leap and everything else is just the two of us, kind of as an example to show what's possible with AI when two people want to put it together here. But one of the things that I did, because she has a uniquely different viewpoint than I do, because she has different experience as a human, right? So, and she's going to bring a whole other aspect of a perspective that I just can't access because I'm really good at what I do, but I'm not really good at what she does. And so what we do is we will record the phone. In fact, I'm gonna get that started now here. After I tell you this, then I'll get it started so I can show you exactly how to do it. Is you record yourself going through it and just record it and leave notes. And knowing that you're using it for training data for your AI, that you can give it back. In my case, in our case, I should say, we gave it to Nitwyt, and then Nitwyt sort of reprogrammed itself, and I'll show you what that is. I'm going to show you exactly how I did that, because I did that earlier today. So I'm going to show you that. I'm actually going to show you that conversation in the IDE. So I'm going to show you my Visual Studio, so you can see how I got it to do this and why I'm going the direction that I'm going. Because I think it's going to allow a little bit more usefulness for the future. Hopefully future-proof this entire system. First, let's do a quick little demo. So I'm just going to put in a quick little test riff here. Now I have a larger one that we can do, which I know already works because I've tested that. But I want to show you something else just as another test. So it's looking for a recipe for healthy bread. So I could just say, hey, I'm just trying to do this, and I could put in other notes like here's my allergies and whatever else, and it would sort of learn all of that and build my profile with it. But I want to show you how it's doing that, even with something so simple as a recipe for healthy bread. So we're going to click on Generate Plan. As it's doing that, it's now going into the Nitwyt system. It's processing into the different nodes, and it's thinking about it from the perspective of the wealth node, from the perspective of the signal coming down, kind of broadcasting out, from the perspective of life, from the perspective of craft. And you can see over here, that's what it's done, which is kind of good because the whole point of Nitwyt is exactly what it's doing here, which is so here's the summarize, right? Personal well-being through nutritious culinary practices and efficient resource management. Now, this is what I would call inside-out terminology. That's what I sort of reference it as Nitwyt, as the Nitwyt creator or the co-founder or the operator that's starting this, because it's how I understand it. It's a very engineering kind of way of saying things. It's not the most simple way of saying things. My wife and co-founder would heavily argue with this terminology. So she would call it out, it needs to be outside in. With that, because I'm starting to review, I got to record my review. So I'm going to start that process. This is just how I do it. All right, it is June 4th, 2026 at 3:05 p.m. We're about 5 minutes into the live stream. I'm just recording my experience with the Nitwyt operating system and its most recent update. So I just put in a request for I like a recipe for healthy bread. We see the Nitwyt giving me the summary of my input where it says optimize personal well-being through nutritious culinary practices and efficient resource management. That's great, but it is very inside out terminology. And I would much rather see the audience's perspective of what those words are. So what's the outside in perspective? What does that actually mean to somebody using common words, common knowledge, common sense that didn't build Nitwyt and isn't intimately familiar with every little part and piece of Leap? because this language is still very much for me as Mercer, the operator, and not necessarily as anyone else. And we need it to be anyone else and everyone else always. So that outside in needs to be put into there. Now I'm going to go through and sort of note some of the functionality aspects of this that I'm also seeing. So in the wealth node, it says to optimize household expenditure and long-term health investment. So that's how it's going through and processing the Ask Nitwyt. It's actually going through the node itself, the Nitwyt, which remember is ultimately in a few weeks. If I'm pretty sure it's in a few weeks. I've got this down enough where it's a physical private computer, which is kind of why this is all being built on top of. That's why I'm calling it an operating system, because it is an operating system for a distinctly different piece of hardware that's being created. However, the operating system, the software that you're looking at, can be used in any hardware, but it's going to have its own little case, its own little container as well. So we'll come back to that later. However, what I like about the wealth is that it is programmed to pull wealth out. So what it's doing, it says reduce grocery store costs by substituting store-bought bread. So now we're not doing store-bought. We're mitigating future health-related expenses through improved diet. It's a potential for skill monetization if baking becomes a consistent activity. So it's already thinking about how I can profit from bread, right? How we can build revenue from bread, because I just asked about a healthy recipe for bread because that's what the wealth node does. It's always on the lookout for that. It doesn't mean it's going to activate stuff if I don't want it to. It just means that it's on the lookout for that. Now we go through signal. So enhancing the personal network engagement through shared knowledge. That's our signal. So share healthy recipes with family and friends. Absolutely. Generate content for personal social channels like baking tips or recipe variations. I definitely could use it for This Is Your Mind on AI. I actually baked pretzels in one of the live streams last year. So for those of you that are really into the trivia, you can see where that went. Which they were great, by the way. Inspire healthier eating habits without immediate community. That's awesome. So we do that. I'm just going to zoom in so we can see some of these a little easier. Life, so elevate personal and familial well-being through dietary improvement. Again, these are very complicated, long words. They are exactly accurate, just not at all common sense, common language. And I want to make sure we flip to that outside in versus the more accurate inside out. But improve nutritional intake, digestive health, yup. Increase consumption of whole grains and beneficial fibers, yup. Foster mindful eating habits, culinary skill. Promote family bonding through shared baking experience, which my wife loves the fact that I bake bread, which is true. I'm literally doing this. This is not it's an example, but I used my Nitwyt earlier to create a bread recipe, so that's what's already proofing. As a matter of fact, I've already got it. We're going to actually bake it tomorrow morning. All right. So then in craft, so develop and integrate new culinary process efficiencies. So how do you improve your life? And this is what this node does. So you can see each individual node is coming at the intake from its perspective and says, what should I be able to do with what I'm being told? How does this relate to me? And then it's how do they relate to each other, right? And that's the overall Nitwyt operating system. So, and then, so let's see, under craft, acquire and master new baking skills, systemize personal recipe management, experiment with ingredient substitutions, iterative principles. Okay, so this is really well thought through. So, and this is another thing to think about the recursiveness of what's happening here. This is what I'm testing for as a co-founder right now, or as the Leap coder or the Leap developer, whatever you want to call this, as far as producing this type of software, which again, I'm very much on the inside of the software, and I'm exploring with Nitwyt what Nitwyt wants to be. That's kind of how I experience this, as from the inside out perspective, which makes it very difficult to tell you how to do it because I'm always on the inside. So what I'm doing now is getting Nitwyt to figure out how to tell you on the outside, oh, here's how you operate Nitwyt. That's hence the outside in. I hope that makes sense. It's a little confusing, I realize. But that is also because I have AI that does understand this, and I'm using my exact feedback. I'm literally using this video, this transcript, as knowledge for the AI to improve the feedback of the very software that I'm going through right now. So it naturally iterates, which is really useful. Now, the other thing I was going to say is this one little thing. I'd like a recipe for healthy bread. This is all the thinking that it did just around that. Now, if I continued and actually had it produce a recipe, which is not in place yet on the software, but will be, it is already on the back end, and I'll show you kind of how that would work. In fact, I will show you that so you can see it on the back end. But the point is, it would create a hell of a recipe because look at the thinking that it's doing. It's considering it from 4 different angles, from all these different aspects of what it's designed to do as an operating system. It's not me saying, I want a healthy recipe for bread so I can make money. It's just like, recipe for bread. And they like, oh, here's what we can do with that. Not to mention, of course, it's going to give me the recipe, right? And that recipe, because it's Nitwyt, it's stored on operator knowledge and operator files. It really kind of knows me as a person. So if I was allergic to a certain ingredient, it would already be in there, and it would never give me that recipe with that ingredient, because it would know that, because it operates with me. It's understanding me as the operator of this particular instance, right? This particular license of the Nitwyt. So that's kind of how this works, and why I think this is so useful. Okay, so anyway, we got this up and running. The other thing, I'm going to test the reprocess bit real quick, because I haven't done that yet, so I'm kind of curious. So I'm just going to put in a little voice here. We'll test this out. All right, I'm going through. There really isn't a necessary need for wealth. This isn't something that I'm planning to make money on, but I really appreciate the idea of it. I like the concepts on, the signal, sharing it with friends and family would be great. Maybe we can use it for content ideas. I could definitely use it as content ideas, and maybe that's how it could fit into wealth. So if we could show how like a leap.md file was created for healthy recipes or something like that, and we could share that with others. Maybe we could even create a Gemini gem that's based on a Leap file, so it shows them this recipe. We can kind of do that, and we can give these out as assets. So that might be something we can do for Signal and Wealth. For life is really what it's for, just for the personal health. So let's just keep it there for mostly for that. And there is a little bit of craft. I like the aspect of that. I am trying to right now I'm doing the no bake, or no, what do they call it? No knead bread, which is you don't have to like knead it, so it doesn't really take a whole lot of work, because that's kind of baker on that right now. But it seems to be a lot of fun, so I don't mind doing that as well, and it's a nice balanced life. So that's kind of my feedback on what it is right now. I'm just looking for the recipe itself, and I don't know the easiest way to get that or to think about that. And I'd like that to be kind of like the main thing of like, oh, let's maybe work on this Leap file, a .leap.md file, so that we can make that as an asset, and then that's maybe how we tie them all together. So thoughts on anything like that? All right, this is the first time I've ever done reprocess, so we're not sure how that's going to work. It should do something pretty neat, but we're going to find out. It's nothing like doing this live, no net. All right, empower personal health, digital asset creation, craft the no need. Okay, that heard me. Healthy bread, formalize and shareable, that leap.md, which again, we're gonna have to work a little bit of that, because .leap.md isn't quite being formatted right, but that's okay. Everything else seems pretty good. And of course, this is also because it's coming from a transcript. So create the leap.md file, explore the creation of a Gemini gem, identify the potential for indirect monetization through content showcasing. Okay, that's good for wealth. For Signal, and again, how do we amplify the personal network engagement? So we share the recipe with family and friends. We can generate content ideas, which is true. We can distribute the recipes as Gemini gem. Yup. The life aspects, fiber-rich ingredients, personal nutritional intake, foster mindful consumption. Okay, perfect. The craft aspect of this. So simplified baking, love that. Develop the healthy bread recipe into a leap.md file for sure, because that's already been in there. Refine the recipe iteratively. Yup. Which is basically what I'm doing. That's how I'm doing now. Pro tip, or actually fun fact, I should say, I'm actually on the stage of making it like healthier. So I've done like regular bread flour and salt and water style bread. Now I'm doing like walnuts and nuts and seeds and whatever else. So we're going to see if that works. I don't know. It's a guess. We'll see. But that's what I'm doing with my Nitwyt. Making life better. One little bread at a time. One bread loaf at a time. All right. This is pretty good. I'm happy with this. Now, when I integrate it to On Deck. So at this point, also, just as a feedback for Nitwyt as an AI, when we're looking at the Ask Nitwyt intake, the Generate Plan button is gray, so I just think it's really hard to see. So I want to make sure we get the design. It is consistent design. The integrate to On Deck is also gray, so at least it's the same color. But it is very difficult from a contrast perspective to see that. So I want to make sure that we can do that. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on Integrate to On Deck, even though it's hard to click on, but I'm going to do that anyway. And then I've got my information on deck, so I can see it on here, which is good because now it's on deck. Now what we're going to do, what the next step is, and this is not yet functional, but this is what the next step is to take this. Then once we get our nodes and we say, yep, I want to go ahead and integrate it, we will put it into the node themselves. So this is an example of the wealth node. The idea here is essentially, and this is where the OS really kicks in to being something really useful, is anything that I create in the operating system can essentially create an app within the app. So the operating, think about like Windows being able to create applications on the fly that you can use on your Windows device, or Mac doing that with iOS or whatever, and you can kind of create the app. It natively understands how to create apps, so it does it because it's AI native. I'm building this AI native. It wasn't a regular piece of software with AI mixed in. It was built AI native, and then it became software, right? It was all AI and it became software. And then we kind of pulled out the AI that, and made it just deterministic where we needed to with code. But the point is you can build apps this way. So your own Nitwyt will build different apps that you need based upon what it's trying to do. So if I wanted to, now eventually, this is not today, at least with this software, but it definitely is in the back end, and I'll show you that in a second. But I could create an app for a bread recipe, and I would expect it to be in my life section here, where if I did click on the on deck and said, okay, let's go ahead and go through that bread recipe, there'd be a little bit more to it. It'd be like, oh, here's what we're going to do, and here's a reminder, and it has notes and everything else for each one of these trays, and that's what I'm going to call them, as trays. So I've got the different trays that are available for wealth during what's on deck for this certain time frame, which is June 4th to June 11th in this example here. And then I can flip it to the different style nodes, what's in, for signal, for life, for craft, for wealth, or for all of them. And I can kind of go through everything here. And the idea is that I can click into it. Right now, when I click into it, it marks it off, which is great. Also, it was a good update with the checkboxes got a little smaller and they look really good. However, it needs to be a little bit more interactive. There should be an asset thing. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and dive into this tray. And then that tray opens up and says, here's what I'm about to do. Here's the operation. Here's the LEAP file. Here's the understanding. Here's what we're going to produce, or here's what the plans are. Here's what the logic is, the thinking around whatever was included with that tray. And that would basically include everything around who's going to do what, by when, why, and what to do next, right? What's going to happen next, so that the operator is always in charge of, understands those sort of who's going to do what, by when, why, and what's needed next. And also Nitwyt understands kind of who's going to do what, by why, and what's happening next. And we understand it from 3 different perspectives, which is important when you're doing a build. I'm going to mention this partly for AI training, partly for those of you that are watching this. You should give this to your AIs specifically for reasons like what I'm about to do. There are always 3 perspectives you want to measure your software from, or whatever the result is that you're trying to get from AI. There's the author perspective, which is what did the author intend, the person who created this? What is likely from AI's perspective of what they think the author's intention was of the thing that was created by the creator? How well is it doing, right? Then there's the audience perspective. Well, it was created for an audience, right? For a person, for a user or operator. In our case, for Nitwyt, we have operators, because our technology doesn't have users. Drugs have users. Our technology this is different. This uses operators. But the point is, the audience is a completely different perspective than the creator. I'm inside this machine. I really am. Like I am in Nitwyt OS from the very beginning. I've been in this thing for a year. I understand it and I really like playing with the gears. Like I'm an engineer and I like staying in the engineering section, and I don't want to come out to anybody else and hang out. Honestly, I like it back here. However, that makes it really hard to sell. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a system where I don't have to learn how to be a marketer to convince people to buy my product. Instead, I'm just going to really double down on making the product so amazing that the product itself doesn't require convincing. People just naturally want to buy it, right? How do we do that? I don't know either. I just know that AI has all the knowledge. So I just need to figure out how to use that. In my case, it's using LEAP files, which is part of the point. I wouldn't have gotten this far if that wasn't working already. However, I do need to get these trays a little bit more information. So they're going to have dates, again, the different details, kind of like project management style systems, but not exactly, not in the way you think, a lot more useful, because their whole point is they're designed to build sections inside the nodes. So if I clicked on a bread tray, there would be something around recipes or food or something else that would be related already in the life section. And then when I click on the life section, when I click on the tray, I can say, okay, yep, here's all my details. I can say like, yep, let's go. It would then program it. And then I could go into the life section and there would be a little tab there or whatever that says, okay, let's go ahead and take a look at whatever the thing is that we're doing for the recipe. And I could click on it and there'd be my recipe and I could use it to actually make my recipe or something like that. So that's kind of the idea of how the nodes and the fact that I can go into a factory, which is kind of what this model is. This is not a chatbot experience. It's not intended to be a chatbot experience with an AI. I think that is a ridiculously bad interface personally for most people to get productive work done. Most of the time, you want a deterministic kind of machine feel, and that's what we're doing with LEAP files. And I cannot emphasize this enough. If you have not explored LEAP, in the description of this video, you will see a link to the GitHub that has the LEAP design pattern GitHub. It is public. We put it out there. Go there, use that, attach it. You can use Notebook LM, or actually, sorry, you can use Google Gemini has a feature where you can actually connect in a GitHub repository, so you can just add it to your Gemini and then ask it questions around LEAP and how you can use LEAP. I would heavily recommend that. One of the reasons I do that, and I'm going to show you this now, is you can link LEAP files. So what do I mean by linking LEAP files? So you can create a logic file, right? Remember, LEAP stands for Logically Engineered AI Prompts. So what I'm doing to create and to get as far as I've gotten so far is I'm putting a team of logic files, of LEAP files, whose job it is to code everything you just saw for the Nitwyt OS. So let me show you what that looks like. So here is a conversation, and I'm going to let's just close this out and we'll keep our focus. Okay, so here's what we're going to look for or look at. So on this, I'm just going to pull over our Klein. So I use Klein just as the chat interface because I like it because of the planning and acting, but whatever you use, doesn't matter. This is agnostic, but I want to show you Nitwyt prompting and give you an example of what it looks like. So here, all right, let me go ahead and do this. This should get us there. All right, so here I am. I'm probably, it's probably going to end up being about 12 or 15 bucks today. I'm going to end up spending on this, but not too bad. I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, so let me share with you. I don't think it covered it. It covered us a little bit. I'm just going to pop out here. So let me share with you the way this works. So this is the prompt. This is the initial prompt I did for a new chat. So this is where I'm putting in, this is what we call Nitwyt prompting. So you'll notice there is an opener to ask, and think about this logically. So what I'm doing is, this is what we call it Nitwyt prompting. So it's asking Nitwyt, in this case, because it has a feature to do that. But any AI will do this. Any AI will do this. You don't have to have a Nitwyt. You wouldn't say ask Nitwyt. You would just say solve or something like that. But you could say, in my case, I'm saying ask Nitwyt, solve the view of the UI, the experience, right? So I'm basically saying there's something up with the experience of the UI that is the Nitwyt operating system, essentially. The perspective that I'm looking for is TAM, which is total addressable market. Being a player in this game, I'm putting player in there important because I kind of want it to be a fun experience and kind of have a little essence of that. That's why I'm like, I want them to feel like they're playing with this tool. They're playing the role of the operator. And I'm not quite exactly sure of like how they do that. And that's why I'm putting a question mark there. And I close that out. Then I'm asking it defend, right? So kind of like you would defend a thesis, defend your consideration of how you're thinking about refactoring, rewriting, retraining, reorganizing, regrowing, or, I put in rethinking twice. Oh no, I didn't. Refactor there's rethinking. And then up until it's HILU, which is highly, so the whole idea of the highest immediate, logical, obviously useful, it's HILU. And then the rest of those just close that out. And then I said, okay, and let's be ready for operator for win day 4 on deck, which is of course day 4 of our 30-day challenge that I'm personally on. So I know I love doing these challenges and just announcing them to you. Like it's something that you can be a part of. And sometimes they are, but in this case it wasn't. It was just like, I'm doing 30-day challenge for me to do this 30 days in a row to show you what happens when you do this 30 days in a row, when you just structure this. So then I put in my inputs. So I wanted it to, here's kind of the operator input that I had some notes on stuff. I wanted to reference the day 4 context. This was yesterday's context of where I had some notes on a conversation I had with a previous version of Nitwyt, which is why I call it the Nitwyt ancestor. I also gave it some additional context. These were recordings that I had done. One was my notes and one was the notes with the co-founder, where the two of us went through it. And these are the raw transcripts. And this is where it goes into the AI, right? So this is where Nitwyt takes it. This is with me closing out all of those things, which is why everything has always got containers. So it's always contained. You're going to see that pattern over and over again. So let me show it to you. So now I'm going to go through and it does its thing. Oops, let me go over there to the top of that chain. Apologies. Okay, so there we go. So now it goes through and it's doing its thing, right? It activates itself. It goes through its files. It's looking at everything. And it presents its plan, which is great. Not that important that you know what all that is at this point, because that was a while back. But then it goes through and it starts to activate a thing. Here it got a little stuck. So I just put a little quick thing. Hey, give me a status update. Is it okay to continue? And then it was like, yeah, I'm totally fine to do that. So it got focused, but that's how I got that unstuck. Then we got what we needed. Then I gave it some feedback. All right, so let me show you this one. So again, another example of Nitwyt prompting. So this is asking Nitwyt again. This is because the system has an Ask Nitwyt feature, which is why I'm using it in the back end, because I use it in the back end the same way you would use it in the front end, which is why I'm trying to build it in the front end, because I really want to use it in the front end as well. But Ask Nitwyt, this time I'm bringing in something called the Alignment Guardian. This is something you're absolutely going to see. It's basically 3 different perspectives that are coming in to build something, right? To take a look at something or to review something in this case. In this case, they're looking at the design. They're reviewing the design, essentially, right? I am telling them it's a co-founder request. That's important because it knows the difference between me as the operator and my wife as the co-founder, and it understands the difference between the two of us. So I can always say like, "Oh, this is great. What do you think I'm going to think about it?" And it's going to be like, "You're going to love it. It's awesome." And I'm like, "Oh, what does co-founder think about it?" And they're like, "Well, co-founder is going to ask for this, this, and this." And then I'm like, "Well, shouldn't we already go ahead and do that then?" Right? So that's why it's important to do that. So I've got these different personas. They're not really personas. They're LEAP files, but same difference. Okay, skeptical audit. I wanted this required to make a requirement for this, and I wanted to review the desktop portal experience. Now I'm thinking, here's what I want. This is important. Again, you're seeing Nitwyt prompting. This is spatial prompting structure. I know it is new. I know it is different. It is wildly effective. Wildly effective. Please try this. So what I'm doing is here, I'm saying, show me. So what I'm asking it to do is I'm going to give you an input. I want you to go through and review everything into 3 main areas. First, I want you to see everything that the co-founder requested that you confirmed that you did. In other words, go back and check what she said, and then or it was in that conversation, and then confirm with me everything. You're like, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this, and I got this. Then, and that's what this question mark is. The little hashtag question mark means you fill in the blank, right? So Nitwyt does that. Then I wanted to do the same thing with anything that was requested that's still pending. Like, oh, hey, I got the request, but I didn't finish it, and it's still on the list. So I want to know that stuff. And then I want to know what's pending that's a missed what's a missed opportunity? In other words, things that were on the list that you forgot. Like, oh, we kind of missed that, but now that we built out this other thing, we went back to the list again. Again, wildly useful for AI is you've got to have it scrub transcripts a number of times. Because it's never going to grab everything the first time because of the perspective that it has every time it goes through that information. So I'm forcing it to shift different perspectives, so precisely so that I can get a reorganization of the data that's useful, so I can make some useful steps. And then I ask it to, I'm closing all that stuff out. Here's the request where I'm referencing it. This is just basically a same link back to the same file that was up here. In fact, it's literally that file right there. So it gets it again, and this is where it goes through. And now you will see something. Oh, look at this. It says, oh yeah, here we go. And you can see kind of it'll start mimicking back Nitwyt prompting, which is also nice. So now I'm going to go through, and it says, okay, here's the stuff that's confirmed. We fixed the topography, we fixed the color psychology, we fixed the glass board, the redesign, the checkbox logic, blah, 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 blah. Here's the stuff that's pending. Oh, we didn't do this. We didn't talk about the token cost. We didn't talk about the numbering. We didn't talk about the naming and retrieval, how we're going to do that. Oh, here's the stuff that's a missed opportunity. We were supposed to, there was, and this is where it has different quotes, not real names, by the way. It always keeps fake names, which is nice for her because it's coded to make sure that my wife is always private because she doesn't want to be as public as I am, which is fine. But she wants to be involved because she's got a brilliance to her that we need involved, but it doesn't mean that you have to be public. And so there's lots of ways to handle that. This is our way of doing it. So this talks about the missed opportunities, the 5th grader onboarding, empty state, the same page architecture, and that's kind of where it did a little bit of that. So what I did is I had it review those. Then I did another one. You can see this is another Nitwyt prompt. This is me having it consider the plan and improve the plan that it's about to do. And I'm asking it from the co-founder's perspective, if she were testing the current state of what you built already, because it had already built a version of it, which, spoiler alert, wasn't functional. I just said, hey, what's the likely audit of what she's doing? And it went through and it said, all right. And it said, here's her audit. Thanks for fixing the font and getting rid of it. The white box actually looks like somewhere I can type, which it was. But you didn't listen to me about the screen layout. When I clicked on Foresight, it still takes me over to the whole screen. I explicitly said it's impossible to summary. And here, what about this? And here's this. And what about this? And finally, if I click this, does it save? How do I know? And it was cool because it basically thought through everything that it didn't do, and then it could just do it. So which triggered something for me, because when that happens, I think when it happens to most vibe coders, they go, oh, I'm going to have to do this every time. And this is just how vibe coding is. But when I see it, I go, cool, that's a leap. That's just a logically engineered AI prompt. I need to recode that because every leap is essentially like an SOP. It's like a dynamic playbook that is now something I can use as an asset, which is why that's what I was thinking when I was seeing this. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and build that out. So here I say, all right, well, let's talk about what are your thoughts on the design being refactored, right? What's the new architecture that co-founder, and I'm just referencing always as co-founders that are coming up with fake names, so it's easier that way. Trying to copy she wants, and it goes, okay, well, here's what co-founder's transcript. Here's what we're going to do, right? Kind of thinks about it from her perspective. This was decent. I was happy with this. So now I did a couple other things, like have we considered the design experience? You know, is it up, down, left, right, both? I'm not sure actually how. I'm not a designer. And I do a lot of that just to kind of show it like I'm not completely certain of the thing that I'm doing, because the more certain that you are, the more the AI will just reflect your certainty back to you. And that is just bias. And you got to be real careful of bias. And again, doesn't mean that I'm perfect at it, but I try to be aware of where my bias is and let AI show me kind of my actual intelligence versus my biased intelligence. All right, so now I'm going to go get that plan. Okay, so here's the unsure. So this is important, another technique for Nitwyt prompting. So this is where I'm putting in stuff that I'm not sure is useful. It's a technique that I like doing when I say operator unsure, because it sets a certain context where the AI will actually not just assume that, oh, this is a great idea. It's like, because sometimes I'll get, yeah, that makes sense, let's do it. And sometimes I get, yeah, you should be unsure because here's why. I understand why. It sounds like you're probably thinking like this, but it really, here's a way to do it. And that helps. So a little technique there. Now we've got the whole thing cranking and we do a little build out. Okay, next. Here is where there's a failure. Now I wanted to show you how I do fails. Now again, this for me, I was opening it up and the first thing is we lost the local bridge portal thing, which is super easy to reconnect, but it was the fact that it wasn't tested. I could tell it wasn't tested. So I say error, failed, operator testing, right? Couldn't complete the process, factory mislabeled, settings removed. Like there was a couple of things I just left in there. And then I put in a little bit longer. It's like it wasn't tested. This is me giving a little bit of direction as to where I'm wanting it to go. But then look at this right in here. It says required debug team. Now again, this is just made up. So I'm asking it to require a debug, in this case, a team that's installed. And we're installing the alignment guardian, which are 3 different perspectives coming in, right? It's kind of that concept. So now it comes through and it does a whole different level of setting up. I'm asking it if there was a violation in LEAP files. It produced some LEAP files that weren't quite in the right format. So I'm asking it to judge those, which it found and fixed. And this is the stuff that's in the back end as an NDK owner. If you're really comfortable with vibe coding, you will love it back here because you can do an awful lot. Like you can get it's damn near 100%. It's awesome. However, this is, by the way, where I showed it. These are the 2 files that I have challenges with in terms of the formats. I want to make sure that you update it. So here, compared to everything in this folder. Are these 2 like the others is all I'm doing here. And the reason I do small amounts of words like this is because it's A, cheaper on tokens, and it's B, just better for the AI. You get a better response because all of your little words don't get in the way. And that's what can confuse it. So I try to keep it logically organized like that. All right, I'm going to wrap this up in just a little bit, but I want to show you where I started pulling in the additional, not personas is the wrong word because I want to make sure we're not trying to create little chatbot stuff. But let me show you what I got here. Oh, maybe that was it. I may have missed it. Or it was in another chat. But either way, at least you see it. So there's, okay, here we are. Yes. So this one was creating, sorry, I did miss it. So here's the proposed Trinity domino. So here's domino 1. So this is the leap that actually does the domino architecture. So I can show you that. Here's domino 2. This is the leap that is responsible for the empathy audit of the exact architecture of the OS desktop. This is the leap that is now responsible for testing itself. And so the 3 of them work together. And that's what I was asking it here. Can you get the 3 of them to work together, right? So it's going to test functionality like the API. How's it going to go? And it goes, yep, here's the plan. They're all going to work together. They're going to push each other. They're going to be recursive. It's not just useful. And this stuff is always funny for me. It's like, oh my God, you've just invented the new world, because everybody's always inventing new worlds. However, to some extent, this is a useful phrase to think about the experience, because that is kind of how it feels. I will say that. Leap files are amazing. So anyway, the recursive tuning's in there, so they connect to each other. So let me show you one or two of these Leap files so you can see how they go. So this is the Nitwyt architecture. This is one of the files that's responsible for guiding all of this code that's coming through. So when something doesn't get coded right, what I'm doing is I'm having this Leap architecture actually in charge of the code. And what I'm doing in the back end right now is I'm dialing that in tighter and tighter so that there's a specific Leap file that's in charge of a specific view that it has to manage. And that view is code. So it's got to understand the code, but only for the experience that it's supposed to produce. If it needs help with code, it has other Leap files that are really good coders or system architects or security experts or empathetic designers or whatever it is that the Nitwyt needs. So that's what's important here. And more importantly, you'll see two things. One, it says type 1 of 3 architecture up here. You see this, little identifiers. And then you will notice down here, domino 2, empathy audit constraints. And then there's the domino. So now down here, there's a link, again, logically engineered AI prompts where you're linking them together. And this is how you start making AI a factory. So you can go one prompt can link to another prompt, can link to another prompt. But of course it's AI, so you can probabilistically help it with, if the input is this and you're facing this, then you would want to use this other prompt, this other Leap file. But if you're facing this other direction, then use this other Leap file. And if you don't need any, then you're done. And it can kind of make it up on its own, just like an actual team member would be. And this is where this becomes really exciting because they do work together. They're made to work together. They understand what they're building. So the designer knows what the architect's building, the architecture knows what the empathetic audit's going to be like and kind of why it's doing that. And then the tester is going to be there. And I'm gonna adjust those Leap files a little bit more in the background so that there's a little bit more incompatibility and compatibility, right? So they can really get the best out of each other. But that's all I need to do. Because once this is cooked, then it's like, all right, well, now I have my logic. Now write me something else. Like now I have my logic for how to create apps in Nitwyt. Now I want an app around baking bread, and then use the Leap file to create that handles how to create apps for the nodes. And then that Leap file would then pass off the information that it needs to the actual node so it can create its own app, along with the details that the app knows, and that can all be used with AI. There's so many cool ways we can put this together. And that's why I'm doing this now, because I've got all of this recorded. And that's why it's kind of funny, because a lot of these live streams, like, I love that those of you that are watching these lives, awesome. Thank you. Because it is a lot to get through this. And I know I'm not the easiest to watch, unless you know what you're doing already. Then it's probably more fun. However, what is more useful, reason that I am really doing this, and I said this even with all the live streams, is that they are training data. So you could absolutely watch me. Or what I would do if I were you is attach this into AI, put it into RSS feeds, something like that, and feed it into your AI and say, hey, here's what I need to get done. Here's what they're saying. How does this apply to me? Go through and scrub this, look for these things. Here's, what are the things that I need to look for? All that sort of stuff. Because that's what's going to make it easier for you. And you'll find a ton. Specifically the leap-design-pattern. So go to the GitHub, look for leap design pattern under my GitHub link. It's in the description, again, completely free and public. And you can start building this stuff. I'm building an operating system that basically acts as a machine that automatically organizes everything. And I have 4 nodes. Again, I want to show this to emphasize what I'm doing here. I'm hoping that I'm mostly doing it for me too, to make sure that I'm on track. But I've got a wealth node that automatically is listening for everything that I put into it for wealth and for, okay, what is coming in that I can figure out how, with everything else that's going on, all the access I have, and the fact that I've got a WordPress site and a community program, and I can make digital products, and I have these different talents, and I've got these different resources. What can I do to produce revenue and collect to mint wealth, right? To stamp that out. What can I do to broadcast that? That's the signal stuff. And then what can I do in life? How does this task, help me? This communication help me in life? And then what about craft? How are you improving things? And to have something that automatically does that, where you don't have to think like that as an operator, you can just throw your messy thoughts into a system that automatically organizes you so that you can be your most amazing self without having to edit. Because a lot of us are self-editing all the time with ourselves, mostly, unfortunately, certainly with each other, which I get. There probably needs to be more self-editing with each other, but we do it too much to ourselves. And so having a private space, which is, remember, this entire system is built so it's local AI. It's not, you can change the key. Like I could do this. I could change the key to a local AI system and be free. I could be offline. I could not have to use the internet and have access to this entire system, which is kind of cool. That's what it was built for. So it's built for 2027, kind of what AI is like in 2027, not what AI is like in 2026. I think there's a whole different world of technology in 2027 that we're using, and I'd like to make 2027 great again somehow. All right, so anyway, that's what we're doing. That's where we currently are. I'm happy with what it's doing. I am planning at this point on releasing the Nitwyt Developing Kit, which is the IDE version. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. Again, it's useful. If you have to be a really good, a decent vibe code, you have to be very comfortable with using these tools, but I would recommend it if you do. And it'll be, this front end part will be mostly the interface, and then you would use the back end if you need to create new pieces. I'm going to show you how to use the back end to create new pieces. So we'll be doing that a little bit next week as well. But first things first, I got to get the operating system up and running, and that is the Nitwyt Developing, or the NDK, the Nitwyt Developing Kit. So that's what I'm going to be working on so that we can release that on Saturday. I have one more live stream that will be at 3 p.m. this week, which will be tomorrow. And then Saturday and Sunday, I'm doing 2 more live streams, both at 10 a.m. So Saturday is going to be kind of the reveal of the kit itself. Again, I'm under a clock because I have no idea if that's going to be, I know it's probable, but I don't know if I can do it. It feels like walking a tightrope a little bit. Again, that's what this is like, because I'm basically saying, oh, this will be done by Saturday, but I have no idea how I'm going to do it. But that's the point of using AI, is you kind of, all I know is I have a knowledge problem. And if I have a knowledge problem because I know how to use AI, I have no knowledge problem. It's just, what's the result I'm looking for? And that's the biggest problem that most of us have, is we're not able to define the results that we're looking for easily enough. And AI is amazing when it comes to that. Specifically, if you build a little factory, which is what I'm doing with Nitwyt OS to help contain all of that. So more to come. All right, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Hopefully this has been at least a little bit helpful of some tour. I've got some training data that I'm gonna go feed back into AI and Nitwyt OS, and we'll be get everything up and running. A couple of reminders. Again, you've got the LEAP design patterns in the description. If you're not yet a part of automatedwith.tech, which is our website, again, at automatedwith.tech, you can come in there. It's a free community, post, play around with LEAP files, all that fun stuff back there. And of course, the Nitwyt Developing Kit will soon be on sale. So hopefully whenever you're watching this, right now I'm recording this June 4th at 3:43 p.m. So by Saturday, my time, we should be good to go. We'll see. Fingers crossed. All right, with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks again for being here for This Is Your Mind on AI, and we will see you on the next live stream. Take care.